charmed ones, and welcome back to my channel for another video. And if this is your first time with me, I'd like to say welcome. My name is Alexis, but I'm also known as Miss Trenchcoat all across the internet. I'm an online entrepreneur who helps ambitious women plan for a balanced life and online business using my CEO strategy and master plan methods. So if that sounds interesting to you, I'll leave some links down below in the description box where you can check out more of my work online, and feel free to check out some of my latest and greatest productivity tools, classes, courses, and more over at thecharmedshop.com. So today's video is so exciting. We are going to be talking about productivity advice for each of the Enneagram types. Now, this was a video idea that I'd asked you guys if you wanted me to do, I think several weeks ago in a previous video, and you guys did express interest in this, which was very exciting for me because I love the topic of the Enneagram, and I think I have some really good solid advice to give to each of the Enneagram types. Now, if you're not familiar with Enneagram, I'm going to leave you some links down below, including a link to a personality testing video that I did. It was like a live class I did that includes an introduction to the Enneagram. But long story short, the Enneagram is a personality test that puts you into one of 9 archetypes. And the archetypes are based on, I think this is very unique, they're based on your life growing up, and they're based on the way your personality developed based around a core wound, right, that may have been sustained in childhood. So the idea is that something has happened to you as a child, the way you grew up, and you kind of have been compensating for that in a certain way because it's made you feel a certain way. Enneagram is a very unique personality typing system because it doesn't just look at your actions, it really strives to understand why someone makes an action. And if you think about it, a lot of people could make the exact same actions, take the exact same actions, but for a whole bunch of different reasons. And that's what the Enneagram really tries to understand, is the reasons why we are trying to take actions, because it really hits on our motivations. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm like beating around the bush here. Motivations. It really is looking to identify your motivations based on what they consider to be like a core wound, something that may have happened to you in childhood that your personality may have developed around. Understanding that wound, understanding why it is that you do what you do, is a really amazing way, I think, to really understand yourself and to correct patterns and improve your productivity and ultimately create the life that you desire. So these are all things that are totally up my alley. I love the Enneagram. I've studied it definitely more than the average person has. Definitely not some sort of, expert by any means, but I definitely know enough about each of the types to give you guys some productivity tips based on your type. So if you know your Enneagram type, let's go ahead and jump in. If not, I will refer you to the links in the description. Figure out what your Enneagram type is if you can. It's kind of hard. It takes a little while sometimes. It took me like several months to like really understand what my type was. But once you know your type, you can come back to this video and I have some personalized advice for you. Or maybe you watch the video if you don't know your type, and maybe one of the types will actually, based on the advice I'm giving, might actually stand out to you. So however you want to use this, this is obviously just for entertainment purposes and like self-discovery. So I hope you guys enjoy this. I'm really excited to jump in. Okay, so my productivity advice for type number 1. Type number 1 is known as the archetype of the reformer. And my advice for an Enneagram 1 is done is better than perfect. I know Enneagrams 1s have a problem with perfection. You guys really like to get things right, and you feel like if you make a mistake, it says something terrible about you, right? But I think this ends up creating a situation where you get into that perfectionistic mindset and you spend way too much time working on things, right? Or you're afraid to actually get started, right? So if that's something that actually resonates with you, some practical productivity advice I would give you for that is to remember Parkinson's law. Now, Parkinson's law is a law of time management that says work expands to fit the time allowed for its completion. So if you gave yourself a whole day to work on a report, it's going to take you all day to finish it. But if you gave yourself a 2-hour block of time to work on the report, then it's going to take you 2 hours. Now, what would you rather do? Have something take all day unnecessarily, or would you like it to actually be done in a nice chunk of time, right? So I don't know about you, but I definitely think I'd rather not waste my time. So if you are a one and you struggle to actually overcome your tendencies of perfection and maybe you work just too long on something, right? I want you to think about Parkinson's law and I want you to set reasonable time limits for yourself. And another little piece of advice I have for you too is that when you do work, if anyone here is a perfectionist, you're afraid to get started likely on your work because you're afraid it's not going to be done right. So I urge you to think about your work in terms of drafts. Do a first draft, make it quick and dirty, just get it done, right? Just do a quick and dirty draft that you know is not going to be perfect and you accept that. Do your draft. Once that's done, I want you to set aside a reasonable time limit to go in and do edits on whatever your work is. And I know that that might sound like I'm talking about writing, but there's a lot of different ways that you can actually extrapolate that into different types of work. So to get yourself, perfectionists, to actually work, tell yourself you're just doing a quick and dirty first draft and then set a reasonable time limit to actually work on editing. And you're actually going to realize that done is better than perfect. You'll feel so much better once you have an actual first draft in your hands that'll most likely motivate you to just get the whole thing done. Okay, so that's Enneagram 1s and my productivity advice for you if you are a 1. Now, my productivity advice for an Enneagram 2, who is known as the archetype of the helper. Number 2, you're always helping other people and prioritizing other people, but you need to start prioritizing yourself. Number 1, if you've been around my channel and my content for a long time, you know that I believe that your number 1 priority, each of us, our number 1 priority needs to be ourselves, first and foremost. It's the idea of the oxygen mask on the airplane, right? You have to put your own mask on so that you are okay before you try to help other people. And the idea is just that if you are well taken care of, that you have more capacity to help and give to others. And I know that's what you want to do, twos. So I want you to start prioritizing yourself first. Now, practically, I also think in terms of your own productivity and time management, because you're someone who's always doing for others, I think it's really important that you follow the idea of the daily top 3. So setting yourself your top 3 priorities every day of the things that you need to do for yourself, for your own work, your own career, etc. Because that's going to give you a really focused to-do list where you know that you can work on what you need to get done and then you can help everyone else with the things that I know that you really want to do. I'm not telling you to change yourself too. I'm just saying use the top 3, get your priority items first, because I know that you're going to get yourself distracted with other people's stuff soon enough. So focus on that, prioritize yourself, prioritize your daily top 3 if you are a Enneagram 2. Now, Enneagram 3s, your archetype is the achiever. You really love to go out there and hit goals and really make waves saying that I'm someone who gets things done and I've achieved a lot and I'm someone who deserves your attention, your respect, your admiration, right? That is the archetype of a 3. Now, what I will say to you though, 3, is that your advice is that you really need to start setting reasonable expectations. You really are the type of person that really feels like you need to be doing everything or putting your hands in all the cookie jars, right? You want yourself in everything because you think that that is giving you this result of having this really admirable life. But the truth of the matter is you need to remember one of my favorite pieces of productivity time management principles or advice or whatnot, which is the Pareto principle, which is also known as the 80-20 rule. This is really important. The 80-20 rule states that 80% of the results that you see in your life actually only come from 20% of your actions. So it would behoove you overachiever, to 3, you're a 3, not a 2, but it would behoove you, number 3, if you were to identify what those 20% of actions are that really make the biggest results in your life, because it's very easy for you to get overwhelmed trying to do everything. So I want you to be really good about prioritizing. I want you to find the 20% in your day that's really giving you the 80% of results. Then you can focus on that, and then you can spend whatever extra time you want achieving anything else extra that's just icing on the cake. But the Pareto principle, I think, is very useful for an Enneagram 3. Okay, now Enneagram 4, your archetype is the individualist. You are really at heart a romantic. You like to romanticize your life. You really like to stand out and feel different. And that can actually manifest itself in a lot of different ways. But my advice to you is to stop dreaming and start doing. I think we all know that you have a tendency to romanticize and to dream and plan. You might be one of those people who plans a little too much, but doesn't spend enough time doing, right? Because you love being in your head, thinking about this beautiful life you're creating that's so unique to you, but you don't always execute on making it happen. So, my actual practical advice to you would be to start getting into scripting. So I think you should start scripting your day out, like romanticize that script for the ideal day, how your schedule would flow, things that you would do. And I want you to then step into it and actually start living it. I think scripting would be awesome for a four if you're not already doing that. And really just mapping out what it is that you want to have in your perfect romanticized day and then actually do it, right? And I think you're going to find a lot of motivation from, and as opposed to dreaming and planning. I think scripting is a way to kind of make it seem more practical when you actually map how you're actually going to fit it into your day. So I hope that helps any fours out there to stop dreaming, to start doing, and start living their dream life that they're always in their head about. Enneagram type number 5, you are known as the archetype of the investigator. You're someone who loves to do research, loves to dig in. But my advice to you is that you really need to start trusting yourself and trusting that you've done enough research to then get started. Fives are definitely the type of people, because they like to be so investigative, that they're definitely the people who will do all of the pre-work of investigating, figuring out before they get started, right? They don't like to start on anything until they feel like they know everything that could possibly happen. They've got plan A, B, C, D, everything ready to go. And it usually takes them to feel very prepared before they'll actually start taking action. This is a little bit different than being a perfectionist. It's not that they want to be perfect. It's that they want to know everything before they get started. But we know that that just means that you delay getting started a lot. So I want you to learn to start trusting yourself that you've done enough research to prepare yourself before you get started. And I think a really practical way you can execute on this is by time blocking, okay? So I think time blocking might do very well with you, because you can compartmentalize that prep research work that you do, because that's always a step, I think, in your planning is prep and research. You can compartmentalize that into a time block, and then you can time block that you're going to get things done. And you just have to trust that you have done enough to get started, and that if you haven't done enough, right, you can always go back and, find research, do the digging, analyze things that go wrong as they pop up, right? But I think time blocking will be a good way for you to compartmentalize your research and your doing, okay? If that is for you, if you are an Enneagram 5. Now, Enneagram 6, you are known as the loyalist. You are someone who very often, although you are very loyal to people, as your name suggests, you are very often full of anxiety and trepidation, worrying about people and worrying about the things that could go wrong. You're definitely something of a worst case scenario thinker. You'd have to admit it, 6. If you are a 6, you know that you've got plans for every different situation, not just plan A, B, C. Like, you've got contingencies in case the world ends. Okay? Like, 6s are definitely the people who have bunkers, right, in their homes, right? I think if you're familiar with the Enneagram, I hope that would actually resonate, that that you understand that that's the kind of person a 6 can be sometimes. So my advice to you is don't overplan for worst case scenarios, or don't feel like you need to constantly shift plans because of what if scenarios, right? Because you get caught up in worst case, what if this happens? I want you to start setting realistic expectations so that you stop planning and you can start doing now, right? Because I think that that's where you get caught up a lot, is in the worry. And you also, even if you start taking action as a 6, I think it's very often that you'll get started, and if a problem pops up, that causes a whole new cascade of issues for you, that now you have to start worst case scenario disaster planning for everything. Now, I think a practical thing that you can do in order to help you shift out of the worry mindset into taking a little bit more action is, I want you to start planning your day based on how you decide you want your day to go, not based on worst case scenario. You have a lot more influence in your day than you'd like to believe, 6. Like, I know you're worried that the sky is falling, Chicken Little, but I want you to wake up in the morning and decide what it is that you want. So if that means you have to script. If that means you have to do some journaling, journal. If that means that you're making a plan, right? And you're like, this is what I decide gets to happen, right? I want you to start seeing your planning and your day in terms of you have the control, not that, oh, you make a plan, but worst case scenario, all these bad things are happening. I don't want you to focus on the negative. I want you to focus on what it is that you want to actually happen and start living from that place. And I think it's going to help you to actually start getting more of the results in your life that you actually want, right? Because I think if we plan too much for like plan Bs and disasters and worst case scenarios, number one, it takes a lot of time and energy, right? Like doing all of that worrying and prepping just for what if scenarios. But also, I think that you're manifesting negativity when you focus on the negativity. So try to decide what you want to happen and stick to that plan. Now, Enneagram number 7, your archetype is the enthusiast. You are an always on the go busy bee. And although planning, I think, is not always natural for you, right? Because you're very driven by your own desires and whims and what makes you feel good in the moment. I definitely think that your productivity advice is to really start focusing on self-discipline and delayed gratification. We have to be honest with ourselves here, sevens, that you may feel like you're not the most disciplined. You're not the most routine person because you're always kind of following your gut and following what's interesting to you and what has your attention in the moment. A lot of times I think sevens have a lot of that shiny object syndrome. Now, although I know that you're always looking for pleasure in life, also delayed gratification is very important. We can't always get exactly what we want in the moment that we want it. And I think that you can actually use the idea of setting rewards for yourself as a practical strategy to actually get yourself to be a little bit more structured and disciplined, right? So I want you, 7, to focus more on creating good habits and routines, right? So that things are a little bit more routine for you. There's a little bit more structure. You're not so all over the place, right? And I think that's going to help you to feel more in control of your life and feel like a better level of satisfaction. But then I also want you, because you're so you're so focused on gratification, I want you to start using rewards in order to incentivize yourself to stick to those habits and routines that you're building. Does that make sense? Okay. So we're going to use what it is that is normally your Achilles heel. We're going to use it to try to incentivize yourself to become a little bit more self-disciplined, to create, positive habits and routines so that you have a little bit more structure in your life. Because sometimes being all over the place, although that's fun and it's like very living in the moment, sometimes you're not really thinking about future, right? So much. You're a little bit more focused on the present. So you need to start planning a little bit more for the future so that you get some more of the big outcomes in your life that you're looking for. I think that should help you if you're an Enneagram 7. Enneagram 8, you are the archetype of the challenger. This happens to be my Enneagram number. I am an 8. And so I know firsthand that 8s tend to be a little bit controlling, like very highly structured. And sometimes they have a problem with really living in the moment and being intentional. So my advice to myself and other Enneagram 8s is that you really need to start releasing outcomes, right? You can't control everything as much as you want to. So I want you to start releasing the outcomes. There's only so much you can do. And then it's kind of like in God's hands after that, right? However, the universe, God, spirit takes it. You've done your work. There's only so much you can do to make something happen or to control an outcome of a situation. Likewise, it would really benefit you to be a little bit more mindful. Mindfulness is definitely key because Enneagram 8s, you can definitely get in your head about being, competitive and focused on the wrong things sometimes. So you really need to kind of have this big picture view of like what life is all about, what your life means to you, and what that life needs to be all about for you. And I also think for practical measures here, you're definitely 8s are definitely a number that they can take on a lot of work. They can be a lot like 3s in that way, that they will take on a lot, not necessarily because they want to be seen as being very successful, but because they think that by taking on a lot, they're going to be able to control a lot of outcomes, right? Now, I've never known an 8, including myself, who didn't have other people around them that they could delegate to. So that is my practical strategy for you, 8, is that you need to start learning to delegate more to the people who are around you that want to help you, because 8s always have helpers around, right? There's always someone in an 8's life, probably a few people who are willing to help if you were to ask. So start asking for help. Start letting go of control, because it's going to help clear your plate of, the tasks and help you live more intentionally and more mindfully, less hustle, more flow. That's the kind of life we want to shift towards, eights. So I hope that advice helps you. It's definitely something that has been helpful for me. Our ninth and final Enneagram number 9, you are known as the archetype of the peacemaker. You guys are very often seen as being very jovial, very much trying to help other people and get other people to be in agreement. So much so that you will very often let your own needs, wants, desires go. You always are putting other people above yourself. Not in the way that a 2 is necessarily. 2s like to help other people, but 9s, you really just want other people to get their goals, so much so that you kind of forget about your own. A lot of times people might think you're a little lazy, which is not actually accurate for a 9. Sometimes people will think that you guys don't have a lot of ambitions for yourself, and it's just that you've pushed your own ambitions down so much so that you can keep the peace and make all the other people around you happy. It's like the sacrifice that you've made for others. So my advice to you, 9s, is you really need to start getting clear on what it is that you want, okay? I want you to kind of identify that other people's, identify what parts of you are taking on other people's input, right? Sometimes you just have to make your own decisions and think about what you want without other people's input, 9s. I know that that's what you want to do. Even right now, if I'm telling you, like, you need to figure out what it is that you want, you're probably thinking, okay, I'm going to go ask my mom what it is she thinks I want, right? That's kind of the default mode of a 9, right? To find advice from other people, get other people's input because we don't want to shake things up, right? But you really need to identify what it is you want and to protect your plans by setting boundaries. So some practical strategies I think would be helpful for a 9 would be, number 1, definitely journal. You're definitely already very introspective, but I think what's happening is you go inside to think about how you can help other people and serve other people and keep the peace with other people. Now you need to go inside and realize what it is you want and how that's differentiated from what the other people in your life want. So I want you to journal. Get to know yourself, get to know your own desires and the things you want for your life. Make sure that it's not what other people want. Don't tell anybody else. Don't even get anyone else's input. Keep them separate. This is your personal time. And then make a plan based on that, and protect your time, right? So when it's a very hard thing to do, learning how to set boundaries and protecting your own time and energy, but you have to absolutely start setting boundaries, which means that when you've made this plan for yourself and you say, okay, I'm going to work on these things today, you might need to turn the phone off. You might need to close the door. You might need to find a way to avoid other people because other people's energies really end up putting a strain onto you as a 9. So you need to find your own quiet alone time to make your plans, thoughts, and do the work, right? That's probably the best strategy for you to set boundaries if you are a 9. So I hope that that helps you to get more of what you want, 9, as opposed to what you think people want for you or the things you think you're supposed to have based on what other people say. And I think that you'll find a lot more happiness and satisfaction in life if you're able to protect those things by keeping them secret, keeping other people's energy out of your energy while you're trying to work on those things. It'll be much less of a distraction for you. Okay, so those were the 9 Enneagram types, the archetypes, my advice, and some practical strategies that you guys should each be using, depending on your number, to help you be a little bit more productive and successful in your life. At the end of the day, I love things like the Enneagram, personality tests, etc., because they're ways for us to understand ourselves and what it is that we want for our lives. And I think that that's always the first step to understand how to get what we want, right? We have to know what we want so we can get what we want. And I've said this to you guys before, but the purpose of planning for me is not so that you can be super productive and fit more things in and be very efficient. The purpose of productivity for me has to do with ensuring that you feel like you're in control and you're getting the outcomes that you want for your life. That's so important to me, that you use productivity and time management as a strategy to actually be satisfied with the life that you're creating, to fall in love with your own life and the life that you get to live, right? They say YOLO, you only get one life. I'm not sure I'm 100% behind that, but I like the sentiment. I definitely want to make sure that you are spending your time pursuing the things that are of importance to you and make you feel like you have a great life that you're in control of, okay? So I hope this has been helpful to you. Down in the comments, I want you to tell me what your Enneagram number is and if you felt like my advice was applicable to you or not, right? So if you think I got it right, let me know. If you think I got it wrong, tell me your situation, what you think you struggle with, and what you think your number is. And maybe we can talk a little bit more about some more customizable strategies for you. So let me know in the comments how you liked this video. Of course, I want you to make sure to give this video a thumbs up and feel free to share it with anyone you think would find it interesting. For more of the behind the scenes of my productivity life and business, make sure you're following me on Instagram at MissTrenchcoat. And if you're not yet subscribed to the channel, what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button for more awesome videos by me. And until next time, bye-bye.